Today, I would like to talk about presence because without presence, you are not here. And we need you here. My name is Selema Masekela. I am a storyteller of action sports culture via television, a little bit of film. I put my hands on a couple of books, and I even make music. Whether I'm out trail running, cycling, mountain biking, surfing, skating, snowboarding, I have no choice but to be present. My avatar cannot join me. I'm not unplugged here, but I think it allows me to show up fresh and as my whole self with something to give and something to say. I think the biggest time waster or time stealer or presence stealer, if you will, is the scroll. The irony that we call it surfing. You are riding technically these digital waves and you go from here to here and then you lock in and you almost avatar yourself into this other world. And I do think there are elements of it that are healthy. I think it builds connection and community, but too much time in it. And I find this as an adult, so I couldn't imagine what it's like as a kid or a young adult still in my formative space. Your idea of what life is supposed to be is being lived by someone else. And you have no idea their struggle or how they got there or how much of that is manufactured, well edited, well placed, to present as this is what it is, or that this is what you're supposed to have. It breeds a fear of going out and curating that on your own. And so by default, I think we all subconsciously find ourselves at times amalgamating ideas of who and what we're supposed to be based on these shiny versions, these peak versions. We're seeing like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of peak moments that people present as like, this is my consistency, which is not attainable in any way, shape, or form. I don't care how glamorous, that's not how you wake up. You cried about some shit yesterday. You're struggling, you're stressed about the world just as much as I am. It also breeds a fear to be vulnerable about the unsurety that we all possess about where we're at. That can rob you from the ability of just sitting in the power of being, and more importantly, of being curious, being excited about and craving curiosity outside of your avatar, but like engaging tangibly with the world around you. I grew up in North County, San Diego, in a very slow-paced environment where all of the community is sort of wrapped and built around almost a preservation of the ocean as this place that everyone gets to play in. You know, community is woven around that. Your friends that you see at the restaurant, you know, or in the streets, it's about sharing stories about what they did in the ocean and what the waves are doing, or that session that you had together yesterday or a year ago. And the community really revolved around that. And when I moved to Los Angeles, which has an ocean obviously, but has so much more going on, and it's not the center, I definitely lost the plot as I was chasing career and trying to make it amongst a whole bunch of other people who came to this place with the same thing. And that priority of, just that simple priority of waking up and the first thing being like, going and getting away, and being like, maybe I need to do this instead or this instead. And then in turn, when I didn't feel like I was showing up with the ability to like really create, like you're kind of mailing it in, you're wondering like, well, why don't I have it today? And then you realize like, oh, your source power, your source energy, that thing that you tap into where you bond with yourself in nature that you used to prioritize is not there. In a world of an abundance of convenient distraction that also cosplays as entertainment, it is very, very easy to just kind of never be fully present. So I had to adjust, reprioritize, and make sure that I was like tapping into that sauce. You have to really, really search to find people who also are into that. I have to work harder for that community here, but in doing so, the benefits have been endless. And I think that's literally what has sustained me in my career, is being able to continue to tap into that and make that a priority in a place where some people might think you're weird for it. I collaborated on Afro Surf. We began putting it together in 2019. We were going to go to these various places around the continent and document Black African diaspora communities and experiences around the ocean. Specifically because general public perception is that that's not a thing, you know? I grew up, when I learned to surf and I moved to Southern California from the East Coast and from New York, kids openly said to me, but Black people don't swim. What do you mean you're gonna learn how to surf? And they said it to me as if they thought that they were delivering me a public service announcement. Like, oh really? Watch this. Over the course of like my first 8 to 10 years surfing, I think I literally met like 3 or 4 other Black people who surfed, like from various regions of Southern California. There was a organization called the BSA, Black Surfers Association, that I read about in Surfer Magazine in the early 90s, and these guys in the 80s and the stories of what they were experiencing. And they had been building community. And I went to an event that they did in Malibu in like the mid 2000s. And it was the first time where I was on a beach and I was like 25, 30 other Black people surfing. And what that did to me, like for the first time, I didn't even know that I needed to feel it, but this feeling of like, we are familiar in this space was really powerful. And so, I don't know, it felt like as I started to get a platform, as I became a storyteller within the space of action sports through X Games and Red Bull and other things that I was doing, I wanted to be able to use some of this platform that I curated to help maybe usher in what the next generation can look like. I do think it's important that marginalized folk have a seat at the table of being able to dictate what the future of this culture looks like. And that starts with getting them to be able to appreciate their right to the space. Africa has more surfable coastline than any other place on the planet. Unfortunately, most people within Western society still think of Africa as a country. And we were like, let's tell these stories. That actually was the gift, because being able to get local writers and photographers on the continent to storytell Morocco, Ghana, Senegal, South Africa, Mozambique, and really present the richness and the diversity of African culture as it pertains to its influence on surf culture. In learning more and discovering how these cultures are starting to well up in and around the continent, it's like, oh, this is actually having an influence on what it means to be a surfer. There's documented experiences of surfing going back to the 17th century in Ghana. You've been raised your whole life to think that the story is solely one of the Southern Pacific. My favorite story in the book is of a young surfer in Dakar named Sharif Fall in Senegal. He's like 6'4", 6'5". And then you see these photos of him surfing, and it's just like Phoenix in motion. Even when I went to go surf in South Africa, which is where my family is from, you know, it was with the asterisk of being in this post-apartheid state where people who looked like me because of apartheid weren't even allowed to surf. And so it's still in South Africa it's less of a novelty, but the time that it's taken for indigenous kids to find a sense of ownership and belonging in the ocean has taken a long time. In Senegal, up here, South Africa here in Senegal, you go to Dakar and you're like, oh, this is just what y'all do. There's no novelty, and the waves are pumping, and your culture is just infused in all of it. I believe that the creation of art that focuses on the magic and the experiences of the coastline creates stewards for the climate. Like, you make your art, people get fired up on it, they get curious, they become passionate, and now you got soldiers. I see what the organizations who have made it their cause to simply create more access for disenfranchised people to build relationship with the ocean as a space for healing. What that creates in now these people getting to have a passion and a belief and a championing of the ocean. A lot of times people think of something like surfing as like, it's just a hobby. And for a lot of people, it's an option. But for marginalized people who have been denied this space where you get to engage with play, like to play with nature, it's a shedding of trauma. That is the power of the ocean. And in turn, those people become passionate and fired up to defend it in ways that like people who've been doing it for eons may not be able to comprehend. My favorite thing as a surfer, I joke and I say, we're going sitting, because it's really not that much surfing that takes place. You are doing a lot more sitting, but within that sitting and being in the water and finding that alchemy that I feel like with the water with it in my body and the water that I'm sitting and floating, and getting to really sit in just the awe and the magic of the nature of the environment, of the energy that you get to sit in and play on this earth. And the fact that like a storm that took place a few thousand miles away on foreign shores sent energy across the ocean. Now I'm sitting here waiting for that energy to manifest itself in the shallows of this beach or this reef. And then I'm gonna bond with that energy, ride this wave, find these moments where time slows all the way down and opens up, and gonna go into some weird nexus, and then that energy dies on the land and I get to paddle back out, harness it again. Like, that's the craziest thing. But you have to be able to sit in stillness and find real presence to appreciate that. And for me, over the years of doing so is when you really get to appreciate the stakes, like of how much that we have influence on what this playground is. This next generation, they have an opportunity to repair the connective tissue by just sitting and being. That's where you get your opportunity to find that wave, your opportunity to also just sit and witness where you're at and where you live. That's what terrifies power. That's what terrifies the hoarders.